Star Wars Battlefront 2 had one of the worst launches that I have ever seen. And no, I'm not talking about that Battlefront 2. That Battlefront 2 is the perfect example of what every game should aspire to be. I'm talking about EA Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, this isn't a video where I'm going to drone on and on about how bad the release of this game was. There are already thousands of videos out there talking about it, and most of you should probably know by now what the release was like and how it showed why EA is the most hated company in this industry. But if for whatever reason you have no idea what I'm referring to, just briefly, EA tried to do their usual cash grab and put microtransactions on everything to where you either had to purchase your heroes using real currency or grind for at least 40 hours in order to unlock them. And this is just a very brief synopsis of what happened. Again, I'm not going to get into it. There are already thousands of videos out there that talk about this, and you can go check that out for yourselves. But nonetheless, the scummy business practices of EA either caused players to quit playing because it wasn't worth spending so much time grinding in the game just to play a hero, and I think mostly it just prevented a lot of players from buying the game, and I was someone who fit into that category. I didn't buy Battlefront 2 until like a year and a half later because I didn't want to have to sell a kidney in order to play Darth Vader. So here we are in October 2020, and it's been almost 3 years since the horrific launch of this game, and in this past summer, EA released the final content update for this game. EA does not plan on making any more content for Battlefront 2, and they've done this in order to put more time and development into Battlefield 6. And so here we are at what most would assume to be the end of this game's life cycle. And you can now find this game typically selling for about $20 or as low as $10. So I'm here to ask the question and hopefully answer, should you buy Battlefront 2 in 2020? So before I take a deep dive into everything you should take into consideration when deciding whether or not you should get this game, I have to say this ahead so everyone knows if you didn't already know. The pay-to-win aspect of this game is now completely gone. After EA saw how bad the microtransactions were and how they just hurt the game's launch, and I think it's been really hard for them to recover from that, they did away with the pay-to-win aspect altogether. So the number one reason as to why you probably didn't buy this game on release is no longer an issue. And I just want to get this out of the way early in the video because that was the number one thing that kept people from playing. It kept me from playing. And so I don't want you going into this video thinking that that's still a thing. Okay, so since this is a Star Wars game, I have to ask the question, is this a game that is only for Star Wars fans, or can a wide variety of players who may not be big fans of the Star Wars saga be interested and have a good time playing this game? And I feel like this could be a reason as to why some people have gone 3 years and haven't purchased this game. Maybe they're under the impression that you'll have to be a Star Wars mega fan in order to have a good time in this game. And I'm here to tell you that that is not the case at all. After spending many hours in this game, I think that this is a game that everyone who plays will enjoy it, regardless of whether or not you're a fan of Star Wars. I think games like maybe Jedi Fallen Order would be an appropriate example of a game that would be best suited for someone who is a huge Star Wars fan of the Star Wars franchise, considering that that's a single player experience, and I think it'd be harder for someone to enjoy and appreciate that game if they don't enjoy Star Wars. But when looking at Battlefront 2, you could say the same thing if this game was only focused on the single player. And don't worry, I'll talk about the campaign later. But this is a game that I think most players will enjoy. If you like shooters, you will enjoy this game. If I gave this game to someone who maybe has never seen Star Wars, which I don't even know if those people exist, but if they haven't seen Star Wars, I could still see them having a great time with this game. Knowing all the Star Wars lore isn't a necessity to have a good time in this game. Of course, it'll help you enjoy the game and appreciate it more, but it's not a necessity. And I think the only type of player who would not enjoy this game are people who are sweaty and try to play every game as competitively as possible. This game is very casual, and that's what I love about it. I can leave a game like Rainbow Six Siege, which is so competitive and so toxic, and play this fun and casual game. And there are some times where the game gets really tense and the score's really close, and that's fun. But if you're someone who's concerned about balancing and trying to be the best Star Wars Battlefront player in the world, this game isn't for you. That's not the point of this game. So don't think that you need to know everything about Star Wars to have a good time in this game. That is not the case at all. But what about content? I mean, why would someone want to buy a game from a company that has came out and said that they're no longer adding any more content to the game? Well, because this game already has an insane amount of content already in it from the past 3 years. 47 maps across all game modes. And what's really interesting about the maps in this game is that no two maps feel the same. Yavin 4 and Takodana look similar, but even the maps that look similar don't play the same. They're completely different. You can have maps like Endor, where you have to try to gain the high ground or you're going to get obliterated. You have a map like Crate, which has extremely long engagements and you need a strong vehicle presence if you're going to succeed on both the offense and the defense. And then you have a map like Camino, which I believe is by far the most beautiful map in this game, that has long outdoor engagements and then transfers into close quarters combats, where if you're in infantry with a shotgun, the Vanguard is what it's called, you're going to have a great time. So every map feels so unique, more so than any other game that I've played. And so having 47 maps across 11 game modes, this is a game that you could still have fun with in 2020. But other than the content like the maps and the game modes, this game gives you a lot to work for. You can spend hundreds of hours in this game and just scratch the surface. This game comes with a grind, but it's not a grind in the sense that if you don't do this grind out the game, that you won't have fun. It's not the type of grind that's going to burn you out. It's more so you play the game and you get rewarded for playing the game. The more you play a certain class, the more it levels up, then it allows you to, get more gadgets and tools for that class. Probably the most important thing to consider when purchasing a game that is this old is whether or not matchmaking still works. Is this a game where finding a match is easy, or do you have to wait 20 minutes to get into a lobby? And when you consider how old this game is, I'm still impressed with how quickly it takes to get into a match. But being that there are so many game modes in this game, and clearly some are more popular than others, some matches will be easier to get into than others. Capital Supremacy and Galactic Assault are game modes where you will instantly get into a match, but other game modes like maybe Extraction or Starfighter Assault may take longer, but this is coming from a PC player's perspective. So if it's easy for me to get into a match on PC, it's going to be really easy for people who are on console to get into a match. And that seems to be the trend anyway. A game will die out sooner on PC than it will on console. And I think that Star Wars Battlefront 2 is going to stay like this for a while. As of right now, the only other Star Wars multiplayer game that would have people playing less Battlefront 2 would be Star Wars Squadrons, that was just released. And don't worry, I'm going to make a video on that. So Squadrons will take some fans away from this game, but keep in mind, Squadrons is a completely different game that is more competitive and focuses on piloting a starfighter. And I think that the only thing that would really lead to a huge dip in the number of people playing this game would be a Star Wars Battlefront 3, which is nowhere in sight. And we won't even hear about whether or not a third installation of Star Wars Battlefront is coming until well after Battlefield 6, which I would expect to come at the earliest in fall 2021, but probably fall 2022. Star Wars Battlefront 2 has a huge community of dedicated fans who both love Star Wars and this masterpiece of a game. I think that the community will stick with this game into the foreseeable future, so don't worry about buying this game and then never being able to find a match. But what about the campaign? Well, if you're buying this game in 2020, you should buy it for the multiplayer experience. And don't worry, I'm not going to spoil the campaign, but I will say that in my personal opinion, it lacked substance and wasn't really great storytelling. The initial concept of the campaign being that it's told from the perspective of a special ops stormtrooper after the destruction of the Death Star in episode 6 was a great concept and had me so excited. But I don't think it delivered, and it was just riddled with fan service and no substance. It's not bad, but it's not what I wanted. I think the only people who will enjoy it are those who are just diehard Star Wars fans and loves anything with the Star Wars logo on it. And again, it's not a bad story. I just think it was false advertising by EA, and if you buy the game and you do the campaign, you'll know what I'm talking about. But of course, this is a huge step up from Star Wars Battlefront 2015 that didn't even have a story mode at all. The only single player experience it had was like an arcade type mode. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but every DLC in this game is completely free. EA saw that the paid DLC is really what ruined Star Wars Battlefront 2015. They released that game and it was just so completely bare bones, and it made you pay another $60 if you wanted the pass to get all the DLCs, or you could pay for each individual DLC that only came out with one map and one new hero. And they weren't really giving you, top of the line cool heroes. They were giving you heroes like Greedo. And so you could spend money on the individual DLC, and the problem with that was you could never really find a match because you could only play that one map. That whole system was just awful and ruined that game. It put a sour taste in my mouth and was another reason as to why I didn't buy Battlefront 2 for a very long time. But thankfully, EA learned, and now all the DLCs for Battlefront 2 are completely free. You pay the initial price for the game, and you get all the content available for free. And now the last thing I want to touch on about this game is the price. This game has stopped adding updates, and this game's over 3 years old, so obviously the price for it is going to go down. Now, all things considered, I wouldn't recommend spending more than $30 on this game, considering that if you haven't bought it by now, this game probably isn't a priority in your life, and it's probably another game that you would enjoy more. But you can typically find this game selling for about 20-ish bucks on either Steam or Origin, and you can actually buy a physical copy for console for about $20 brand new, or you could of course go to eBay and get a copy for like $10. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with this game. And if for whatever reason, if you're still not convinced, I recommend just adding it to your wish list on both Origin as well as Steam. Every few months I see it go on sale for like $10, and at that point, it's just an absolute must to get it. I recommend getting it even if it's at $20, but for $10, I think that's a steal, and you will get some enjoyment out of that. And so to conclude this video, right now we are in the middle of a global pandemic, and people are hurting in a lot of different ways, especially financially. During this time, you have to be more careful with how you spend your hard-earned cash. And with everything considered, I still think you should totally buy Star Wars Battlefront 2, even though it's 2020, and even when 2021 rolls around, I still think that this would be a good buy. Considering that you can get it for $20, and there's the occasional sale where you can get it for $10, that's already a great price for a AAA title that has this much content already in it. This is a game that most people will enjoy regardless of whether or not you like Star Wars. Obviously, if you hate Star Wars for whatever reason, this game isn't for you. But even if you're indifferent to Star Wars and you don't really care about the franchise, you will still have a great time playing this game. You may not care about the campaign as much, but the multiplayer more than makes up for that. And I assume that you were probably interested in this game on release, and maybe you weren't sure about it because you weren't the biggest fan of Star Wars. Maybe the whole microtransaction thing turned you away from it like it did for me. Or maybe you were someone who bought Battlefront 2015 and saw how awful that game was and how they made you pay for every little thing. And maybe that turned you away from it like it did most people. But now all of that's gone. All the DLC is free to play and tons of content to enjoy with a very active community. And it's a great game to have. And again, I don't think that we're going to see a drop in the player counts, or a huge drop in player counts, until we have a Battlefront 3. So this won't be a game that you'll buy and then never play because every lobby is dead. That is not going to be the case with this game, especially if you're on console. This game is super casual and a game that is great to chill out to, listen to music, or even just talk to your friends in Discord and have something to do. So even though this game's 3 years old, and even though EA stopped making updates for it, there is still so much to enjoy in this game. And even if you end up not liking the game, you have to admit this is the most beautiful game that you've ever seen. But anyways, that's my take on it. Let me know what you think down below. If you've already bought this game, do you think it's worth a buy in 2020? Or do you think that the lack of content moving forward is a good reason not to buy it? Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like because that actually helps me out a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like my content, go ahead and hit subscribe for more. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. I am the Senator, and as always, have a good one.